Welcome to your week in review here on WINN FM 98.9 for the period September 1st through 6th. Making the news last week, St. Kitts Nevis Prime Minister calls for deepened ties between Caribbean and Africa at Intra-African Trade Fair.
Dr. Jensen Morton attends workshop on public health digitization in Singapore.
Regional judiciary and law enforcement authorities dissect recent ECCB-RSS workshop on financial crimes.
Your Rhythm is non-stop, encourages Flow Scholarship recipients to continue on a path to greatness.
NEMA Housing and Shelter National Subcommittee Chair on Importance of Disaster Safe Havens. St. Kitts Nevis Prime Minister says Federation already seeing tangible benefits from deepening ties with African continent.
Warren C. Tyson Memorial Scholarship Induction Ceremony honors the students.
St. Kitts Nevis Prime Minister addresses discourse on Special Sustainability Zone. Now the details. Prime Minister the Honourable Dr. Terence Drew on a presidential panel at the Intra-African Trade Fair in Algeria on September 4th, 2025, called for transforming the history of the transatlantic slave trade into a transatlantic bridge of hope linking Africa and the Caribbean. The Prime Minister reminded the gathering that the Caribbean, as the sixth region of the African Union, shares deep historical ties with Africa and should now turn that history into a future of shared prosperity.
The Caribbean has always been a fundamental part of Pan-Africanism. Who here does not know about Bob Marley and reggae music? He was a Pan-Africanist. Who here does not know about Marcus Garvey, who was also a Pan-Africanist? And just to give you a backdrop, in 1945, a Pan-Africanist conference was held in London. And the leaders of that were both Africans and Caribbean people. George Padmore, and from Africa I will just name one, Kwame Nkrumah. That was after the Second World War. And they declared at that meeting in England that Africa must be free. Everybody knows that Nkrumah went back to Ghana and fought for the independence of that great country. And embedded in his cabinet was George Padmore, who was a Caribbean man, an intellectual, who was tasked with helping to set up the Pan-African movement within Nkrumah's government. Again, highlighting the close history between the Caribbean movement for liberation and the African movement for liberation. Hence, my presence here is well bona fide.
During his presentation, Prime Minister Drew emphasized opportunities for partnership.
As a backdrop, I would like to say that recently we have started to establish deeper ties with Africa, as we are the sixth region. Just in a few days, I will be in Addis Ababa, where the African Union and CARICOM will have its first face-to-face summit in its history. There was one in about 2021, which was virtual due to COVID. This is significant. But beyond the historical ties, which are critically important, there are beneficial things to be had as a result of the communication and re-establishment of ties between the African continent and its sixth region. And I want to thank the African Bank for really helping to promote this relationship. As a result of that, we have had at least 2 Caribbean African Summit held in the Caribbean, the latest edition being held in Grenada. And at that edition, we saw entrepreneurs, business people, investors from the African continent in the Caribbean seeking for opportunities to increase trade and the relationship. I can say that for my own country, St. Kitts and Nevis, we have had the opportunity to interact with companies from here on the African continent, where we are now pursuing investments from Africa in the Caribbean, because the Caribbean, I would say, has tremendous opportunities, and establishing this relationship of trade would create opportunities for all of us.
The Prime Minister elaborated on the various ways in which the Federation is benefiting from deepening ties with the African continent and says this is just the beginning.
Since establishing this new relationship with Africa, we are now benefiting from the Open University of Tanzania. We are establishing deeper relationship with vocational studies in Kenya. We are now seeking to establish greater relationships, I would say, in Ghana. And this, of course, I would say is the beginning and not the end. For example, the trade between the Caribbean and Africa is roughly 1% or less. That is a very, very small percentage. You might look at that and say, why is it important? When I look at a small number like that, I see hope. There is a silver lining. There's only one place that that trade can go. It cannot go down anymore. It is an opportunity to go up. Hence, we should establish this deeper relationship. And so let me point out a few areas where there are opportunities to invest in the Caribbean. In technology, emerging technology, in agricultural products, in renewable energy. The Caribbean has geothermal energy. Kenya is very good at geothermal energy. We have sun, we have wind. Our potential is vast when it comes to the energy space. Tourism is a critical part of the Caribbean financial architecture. But there are no flights that go from Africa directly to the Caribbean. To go from the Caribbean to Africa, you have to go north to come back south. And it takes sometimes 2 to 3 days. However, in the Caribbean, we have direct flights from Europe and various cities within North America. And believe it or not, it is a shorter trip for me to travel from St. Kitts and Nevis to this great country than it is for me to travel from my country to London. Yet, I have direct flights from my country to London and no direct flights from my country to the African continent. Therefore, there is great opportunity for growth in the tourism sector, with Africa having over 1 billion people and the Caribbean being a premier area for tourism. Therefore, there are opportunities for this to grow.
The potential for growth is limitless, according to Prime Minister Drew, in trade, investment, education, renewable energy, tourism, health, sports, and the creative industries, given that Africa-Caribbean trade currently stands at less than 1%.
There is so much room for growth even when it comes to the creatives. In healthcare, in sports, what I'm basically saying is that there are opportunities in every sphere of our development because our trade today only represents 1% with Africa, and with global Africa, that will only go up.
On behalf of the Caribbean, Prime Minister Drew said the region is deeply invested in the relationship with the African continent.
We are much integrated and we are much interested in bringing a greater relationship with Africa as the continent and its sixth region. This will help us to create opportunities for our people and to rewrite a history, but a history not written by them, but a history written by us, for us, by us, for our own interests.
The call to action was clear from Dr. Drew to get on board the train of African upliftment and movement.
The Director of Health Institutions, St. Kitts and Nevis, Dr. Jensen Morton, participated in a high-level workshop in Singapore focused on the digitization of public health systems, aimed at improving efficiency and access to health services. The workshop, which brought together health leaders and experts, explored cutting-edge technologies, data-driven solutions, and strategies under which the health sector in Singapore functions. In speaking to WINN FM, Morton recalled some commonalities between St. Kitts and Singapore and said the sessions gave a practical understanding of both the challenges and the solutions that can work in the local context.
The trip to Singapore, it was to participate in a workshop on the digitization of public health, but it also served as a few things. One, it served as an exposition for the pinnacles of development in health digitization, of which Singapore is the global leader. So it was an amazing opportunity to see it. One of the benefits of seeing how it functions in Singapore is that the country itself, in terms of land size, it's not very large. It's only a bit larger than St. Kitts. It has a lot of people, it has like 5 million people. But you're able to see how a health system over a not very large area, how it can be constructed to be able to best serve its people. The other things that were pluses were they were able to show their path to digitization from the ground up and all of the different areas that had to be assessed and perfected in order for them to reach where they are. Even though we are not as advanced in our health digitization journey as Singapore, the plus with it is that our country being a smaller country and the fact that the trials and tribulations that they would have gone through, it's well documented. We don't have to make the same mistakes on our path to digitization that they made. And our small size allows us to adopt the technology a lot faster.
During the workshop, participants explored apps that are used by Singapore to manage their public health system, including apps focused on emergency medicine and preventative medicine, the doctor mentioned.
It also allowed us to get exposure to the myriad of supportive apps that go into the overall management of the wider sphere of public health digitization. So that includes everything from apps that deal with emergency medicine to apps that deal with preventative medicine. So things to send reminders for the general public for walks, nutrition, exercising, things that remind persons about annual screenings for things when they reach a particular age, different things that can be inputted into someone's phone. If phone is the main thing that is used, of course. If the person has a predisposition to something like diabetes, hypertension, etc., just particular reminders that they're able to get exposed to, and everything else with regards to how to intertwine into your health digitization, your patient medical records coupled with aspects of your billing and insurance, coupled with aspects of pharmaceuticals, aspects of laboratory results and tests, and everything like that.
Dr. Morton emphasized that the lessons learned will be instrumental in shaping St. Kitts and Nevis's ongoing efforts toward health digitization. He highlighted that the system would be tailored to the country's specific needs, particularly a more connected and patient-centered healthcare network.
So at the end of the entire exercise that we're going to be doing in St. Kitts with our first steps with health digitization, it should include the ability for persons to access things such as laboratory results from an application on their phone, for example. Even other things such as diagnostic imaging as well. It would allow for persons to make bookings for outpatients clinic sessions. You can make the booking on your phone. You can be told the time to arrive to the hospital to be seen by the physician, such that it can minimize the amount of wait time. It would include for persons going to the emergency room for particular ailments, the ability to send messaging via applications to the hospital such that the medical staff at the hospital can be aware of your special case and the case that is coming even before you make it to triage, and even some advanced things that they had in place, including there was a program that they would have launched some years back in Singapore, which would have included the training of thousands of persons in the nation in cardiopulmonary resuscitation or CPR, such that when someone would call an ambulance for them to receive care for chest pain and suspected heart attack, that person, once they have the app on their phone, which nearly all citizens do have the health app on their phone, it sends the exact GPS location of that person to the emergency services. That location can then be sent to the persons that have been trained in CPR, of which, if you have enough of them trained scattered about the nation, it would be possible for one of those trainees to reach the person sometimes before the full-blown ambulance can reach. And the fewer minutes that pass before resuscitation takes place, the greater chance of survival of the person. So all of those things are things that we will be implementing over the upcoming months and years in the nation.
In 2023, the Ministry of Health of St. Kitts and Nevis put the necessary infrastructure in place for a health digitization network. The network was built out through the collaboration of the government of St. Kitts and Nevis and the cable. According to Morton, efforts are being made to finalize aspects of the software, the training of the IT staff, the training of the hospital staff in its usage, and getting a system of continuous tracking, improvement, monitoring, and development in place.
It's going to require the establishment of a full-blown steering committee for the digitization process, coupled with more persons on island having to receive the necessary training and certifications in IT with regards to health, the strengthening of our own IT team, the adaptation of the technology by all of our different staff members, and also even the incorporation of AI into those applications to reduce the likelihood of making any any human errors with regards to health.
Dr. Morton expressed gratitude for the opportunity to participate in the workshop, highlighting plans to collaborate with Singapore and other international partners on the journey to health digitization in St. Kitts and Nevis.
So the overall trip was very good. It's yielded lots of positive results. We're going right to work immediately, and Singapore has already agreed to assist us as well with the digitization process, and this comes hand in hand with the offers that were already extended to us by our partners in Taiwan as well as our partners in New Jersey.
The workshop was held in Singapore from August 25 to 29, 2025.
The Caribbean continues to face challenges related to illicit finance, organized crime, and emerging technologies, as well as their constant evolution, which impacts the region's economic stability and rule of law. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, in partnership with the Regional Security System and with support from the Caribbean Development Bank, is empowering the region's judiciary through a workshop to not only be responsive, but also proactive toward these threats. Tackling the topic in its Season 29 opener, ECCB Connect's host, Shanna Derrick, sits down with Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court Judge Bernie Stevenson, Pedro Harry, advisor for the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, and Keisha Sutherland, director of the Asset Recovery Unit at the RSS, to discuss the workshop and its implications for the region. ECSC Judge Stevenson detailed how the workshop primed judges to combat illicit finance and organized crime.
The workshop is essentially aimed at building, particularly among the judges, the capacity to understand the whole proceeds of crime arena. We fondly refer to it as POCE, P-O-C-E, which really means the Proceeds of Crime Act. Participants are drawn from the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, which extends across 9 territories, from the British Virgin Islands in the north to Grenada in the south. We have in the group High Court judges and masters and magistrates. We've been exposed to understanding the key concepts involved in prosecuting money laundering and doing civil asset recovery, and understanding the whole question of AML and CFATF. We were also exposed to the concept of cryptocurrencies and alternative assets.
Judge Stevenson described asset forfeiture as draconian when used as a tool for crime deterrence.
It's quite draconian in that it is meant to take away from the criminal activists in our region the fruits of their criminal activity. The process of asset forfeiture is aimed at depriving them of their ill-gotten gains. There are 2 aspects, one to deprive and one to deter. And it is meant to deter other players from getting into it. Look, there's no profit in this activity because there's likelihood that it will be taken away.
Pedro Harry, advisor to the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, emphasized the practicality of the workshop and its necessity as the Caribbean continues to grapple with porous borders in relation to illicit financing and organized crime operating in the region.
This workshop is really timely. Some of the things that we discuss in this workshop are the practical issues such as, what judges and prosecutors are expected to look at during money laundering, even terrorist financing, investigation, prosecutions, and conviction, and the application of sanctions that is proportionate, dissuasive, and effective. We also cover the FATF immediate outcomes and the role of the judiciary in ensuring that effectiveness is achieved from those immediate outcomes.
Harry elaborated on the key takeaways of the workshop with a focus on effectiveness.
A lot of focus and scrutiny is going to be given to effectiveness, i.e., so countries have the legal mechanism in place already. We're seeing that countries have legal mechanism. So there are countries that already have largely compliant and compliant for 40 recommendations. But the issue is on effectiveness. So it is important that we train our judges and our magistrates who deals with money laundering cases in court and also targeted financial sanctions so that they can be a part of the process.
In implementing more stringent protocols for financial institutions and the judiciary to combat money laundering and other financial and technological crimes, Harry expressed possible implications for financial inclusion efforts.
So part of the fifth round will be a lot of focus on financial inclusion as well. And this is where the FATF would have revised recommendation 1 that speaks to risk and coordination, and also recommendation 10 that speaks to customer due diligence. And there have been some revision there to really focus on financial inclusion and having supervisors educating the financial sector, the DNFPP sector, what we call the designated non-financial business and professions, and the virtual asset services provider sector, so that it must be on a risk-based approach and not a rules-based approach. That way, the common man on the street who may not have 2 pieces of ID and need to open a bank account, you have to do a risk assessment. You have to build a risk profile of that individual. And if it is that this person only have a single piece of ID, working for minimum salary or minimum amount of money, the farmer, the fisherman, is it that you're just simply going to say, because you do not have 2 pieces of ID, that you cannot be a part of the formal banking mechanism? We do not want that. And the FATF does not want that. So a big part of the fifth round is going to be on financial inclusion.
Keisha Sutherland, director of the Asset Recovery Unit at RSS, discussed why the RSS needed to be involved in hosting the regional workshop and the broader implications of the region's participation on the global financial stage.
As you would understand, we are all regional institutions, and there are responsibilities, international obligations that our member countries have. And while those particular obligations are national, in that it is the countries that have to comply with these obligations, we recognize that if we are not doing the work in terms of ensuring that the countries are complying, then we would have to face the possible blacklisting and the possible negative effects. And so in recognizing that, and the ECCB doing its examinations and understanding that the member state, there were certain gaps in the member states, understanding that, yes, AML-CFT is a process, and while you are focusing on particular stakeholders, there were some of the stakeholders who affected the results that were not included.
Sutherland shared that while the focus should be on ensuring that investigators, prosecutors, and regulators receive continuous training to combat financial crimes, the judiciary must also be included in this effort.
The international obligations also ask the countries to ensure that the judiciary is properly sensitized on these matters, but also that they prioritize these type of matters.
The Asset Recovery Unit Director shared how combating anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism is part of the RSS's purview in filling these national security gaps in the region.
If we are thinking about national security, we cannot just limit ourselves to the traditional areas of national security. We must look at how risk and the criminogenic environment is evolving in the respective member states. And as we saw that the mutual evaluations that were being done in the respective member states were outlining different gaps, they were showing different issues that member states have, that start becoming a national security issue, because you have countries that are being blacklisted. And then the common person, the common man, is not able to interact with the financial system in the way that they should. This affects our countries in terms of retarding, I would say, economic development, as well as in terms of social development. And so the RSS recognized the need, therefore, to involve itself in helping the member states with filling these gaps and ensuring that we are able to present our countries in the best light before the global system and strengthening their financial integrity as well as their overall financial system.
The trickle-down effect of financial crimes or crimes of any kind is evident. It directly hinders growth. Economic instability fuels higher rates of crime, which act as a significant barrier to prosperity, suppressing investment, reducing tourism, and accelerating emigration.
Police Constable Donnelly Liebert Chiverton drew the public's attention to the traffic congestion outside the Immaculate Conception Catholic School, ICCS, on the first day of the 2025 academic year. During traffic talk on WINN FM's Island T, Officer Liebert Chiverton called for greater cooperation from parents and motorists, explaining that the buildup of vehicles that she witnessed on September 1 during school drop-offs at the Immaculate Conception Catholic School was a challenge for traffic management.
Today is the first day at school. Children are excited, parents are frustrated, parents are, everybody, busybody want to get to do what they want to do, not remembering that we still have to adhere to the traffic laws. And so I am coming along South Independence Square Street, and the traffic is in a mess. And I'm in my private vehicle, and so I pulled over so that I can see what is happening. Just to find out that persons are taking their children to school, blocking the traffic way, and nobody cares. And so ignorance is no excuse to the law. And the yellow lines, they may not have been brightened for the new school year, but they are visible. And so this information goes to every teacher, every parent, every guardian who are driving. Please to be mindful of the yellow lines that you see that are in the areas of the school. The yellow lines does not mean park and take in your children. The yellow line means do not park.
There is limited parking space around the vicinity of the school, which sometimes results in congestion. The officer stressed that the congestion not only disrupts traffic flow, but also creates a hazardous environment.
We understand that children sometimes may be crying, parents want to say their last goodbyes, but do not do it on the expense of the traffic. It is causing a hazard. Some parents have a tendency to wait until they're in front of the school, dropping off their children, to find out that the child pencil case is on the seat and not in the bag. And so they're blocking the traffic to make sure that the child open the bag, put in the pencil case, and then move off. And then they find it that the tie of the child uniform is not straight. And so this is the perfect time to fix it while you're causing a hazard with the traffic. And so we're asking the general public, please to be mindful of these. They may sound petty, they may sound small. But when you stand in line or when you stand in the traffic causing these delays, it becomes a hazard.
though a traffic warden is assigned to the location during peak hours to ease the flow of traffic. Libert Chiverton explained that a long-term solution to the matter requires changes in driver behavior. The officer candidly declared that the issue would be nipped in the bud and not be allowed to continue.
ICS was a hazard this morning, and I must say I feel very hurt for some of the response I would have gotten from the parents. No remorse, no respect. And so I am saying to the parents, tomorrow morning at any given school, this should not happen, and we are going to try our best to nip it. Now it's early. Today is the first day of school, and we will not allow you to think that it's okay for you to be disrespectful to the traffic signs, the regulation that we have in place, and to the traffic wardens that we have on duty.
Libert Chiverton was certain that traffic congestion is an issue in the vicinity of other schools in St. Kitts, and emphasized that it is important that motorists be more responsible and respectful to traffic laws.
And this is not only just for ICCS. My imagination is telling me the same thing is happening at other schools, especially Maurice Helia. And so we are asking you, the drivers, to map out your destination, map out where you will be driving, map out what you plan to do when you get to the school, how you're going to offload the children, how you're going to let your children move from your vehicle to their school.
As the program aired, a caller phoned in to share his proposed solution to address the bottleneck. Referring to Independence Square as a relatively safe place, he suggested that students be dropped off at one of the entrances to Independence Square and have a crossing guard on East Independence Square Street that would ensure that students have a safe crossing from Independence Square through the entrance of the Catholic Church. Another caller recommended a collaborative approach, such as discussions between the school's leadership, parents, and the police to develop a comprehensive plan aimed at finding a balance between safety, convenience, and accessibility for everyone involved.
Preparedness during the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season continues to be advocated for by local and regional disaster management officials, as the region is currently in the peak of the season. So far, the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season has included storms Andrea, Barry, Chantel, Dexter, Hurricane Erin, the strongest storm reaching Category 5 and impacting the Eastern Caribbean for the season, and Tropical Storm Fernand. While a storm has not directly impacted the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis for the season, it is essential to have infrastructure in place to accommodate any potential effects of a storm's passage. On episode 4 of NEMA's From Danger to Safety, it focused on one of the often overlooked disaster preparedness resources, emergency shelters. Valentine Lindsay, chair of NEMA's Housing and Shelter National Subcommittee, revealed what goes into preparing shelters, the challenges faced, including vandalism, and how the general public can contribute. Lindsay dissected the aspects that go into designating a center.
We probably can do it this way. We would have examined a church in Sandy Point, ecclesiastic faith church, because what we recognize, Sandy Point, the capacity for Sandy Point is not what it ought to. So we had to go and look for new areas. And so the church building is one area that we looked at. First, we'll have to consider whether it has the space, the square footage. Then we also would have to look at the number of bathrooms and whether if persons were to use the shelters, we can divide the space into two, for male and for female. And those are the things, some of the things that we look at. We also have to look at whether it has wheelchair accessibility. Looking at this one here, this is one of the things that we'll have to do to improve this shelter here, to have wheelchair accessibility. We also have to look at whether there are any water harvesting or water storage on site. And we also have to look at whether there is, the type of roof and how it is built and so forth. Well, some of the centers for persons who need special needs, some of the centers are already equipped with railings in the bathrooms, railings in the shower, railings in the toilets, and also some of them have the toilet seating. Some is a bit raised, in order to accommodate persons who would need those support.
NEMA's Housing and Shelter National Subcommittee begins assessment for the centres from the start of the year, which may take 3 months to complete. After assessments, the subcommittee would send reports, which would ultimately be reviewed by the National Security and Finance Ministries for allocation of funds for any necessary repairs or renovations to the shelters, ensuring that they are ready in case of a disaster. How can the public help in maintaining the shelters?
The public can play an vital part to assist the committees, and not even just the committees, but the nation, to instill in their children the need of nation pride, the need to have nation pride, the need to value public assets, and also to encourage their children, because I cannot see really adults doing this, so it has to be the young ones among us. So I believe that the public need to engage a conversation with their children, especially in those areas, those communities where we have the centers have to be closed down simply because they are vandalized. So I think the awareness and education is something that we would have to do. So those organizations within their portfolio, within their program, they may need to look at that as well so that they can assist in educating our nation.
Lindsay shared that there are some shelters that need to be repaired, and the subcommittee continues to work to ensure they receive the necessary attention.
Yes, there are a number of shelters based on the last list that we would have submitted need some work to be done, and we would have had one of our persons, Ms. Roberts, who is in community development. She is the project officer there, and so based on her job title and her function, it makes it a bit easy. She's also part of the committee, and it makes it easy. So we have someone now, in doing their work, they are basically continuing to monitor and manage the work that is done at these centers. So if you look at this present center here, we had some issues with the windows. And now you can see that we're not just putting windows here, these are security guard windows. So they can take some sort of, they are protected in terms of hurricane graded. And so this is what we are doing now. I think St. Paul's, we have some windows to change in St. Paul's as well. And there are other centers that we are upgrading as we go along in preparation for this hurricane season. As you know, resources are scarce, and we will not be able to do all the centers for this year.
The chair of NEMA's Housing and Shelter National Subcommittee, in parting words, warns of complacency in personal preparedness.
We are a praying people, and for the past 5 to 10 years, we have not really had a direct hit, and as such, persons have become complacent. And every time, they hear a hurricane is in the air, oh, you're going to pass over us, you're accustomed to pass over us. And so we tend to let down our guard. So, but every home must be outfitted with a hurricane preparedness kit. And I would think that is one thing that we need to ensure, that each home have a hurricane preparedness kit.
As of early September, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, maintains an above-average season forecast, citing warm Atlantic sea surface temperatures and weak wind shear. The peak activity is expected between mid-August and mid-October. NOAA's latest outlook forecasts a total of 13 to 18 named storms, 5 to 9 hurricanes, and 2 to 5 major hurricanes. St. Kitts and Nevis is actively deepening relations with the continent of Africa, with strategic efforts focused on economic and cultural cooperation. Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honourable Dr. Terence Drew, continued to discuss the impact of deepening ties with the continent on a recent broadcast of issues. He already highlighted Nigeria's contributions to the nation and expressed plans to visit Ghana in March 2026. Key areas of cooperation include trade and investment, with a memorandum of understanding to establish an agro-hub warehouse and logistics center on St. Kitts.
And so we are looking for tangible ways to make sure that this relationship benefits both Africa and the Caribbean. Increase trade. And so we are looking at how to increase trade. That is already in train. For example, we are already benefiting from the educational opportunities. We now have an agreement with the Open University of Tanzania for our teachers to advance themselves. We have now...
This is in place already?
Yes, it's in place already. And I think the first cohort of students are teachers supposed to start in September, but it's very soon. And that is a tremendous achievement. Before we thought that we always had to go to the north. Now we can go south. Now we can go, of course, east to, as we term, the motherland. We have also setting up with the vocational school in Kenya, so that our students who are in Tibet can benefit, because they have excellent schools in Kenya with respect to Tibet as well. Africa has a lot to offer. It is the fastest growing young population or youthful population in the world with a great possibility. And there are over 1.5, 1.7 billion people of African descent around the world.
Cultural exchange and diaspora engagement are seen through an MOU with Nigeria's Wari Kingdom for collaboration in cultural exchange, creative industries, leadership development, and heritage tourism with initiatives to boost arts, music, film, and digital content production.
One of the largest planes that ever landed in St. Kitts was an earpiece from Nigeria. Yeah, one of the largest planes ever landed in St. Kitts and Nevis. And they were able to come over with a football team, so we had cultural exchange, and they were able to bring over, goods and so forth that they would trade. And so that process, I can say right now, the minister with responsibility for small business, creative economy and so forth, and agriculture, the Honorable Samuel Duggins, is right now in Abuja. So he has gone back to Abuja. This is his third trip, because he's now concretizing those MOUs that we signed so that we can have more trade between Africa and the Caribbean. So St. Kitts and Nevis is leading the way on this, and it is because I think it is important.
Diplomatic and visa relations with St. Kitts and Nevis and Nigeria are being established to promote reciprocal visa-free access effective August 2025 and foster collaboration in trade, education, and tourism. Multilateral cooperation with the Federation actively participating in regional forums to foster deeper ties with Africa is also paramount.
I'm looking at really to develop at the summit between the AU, the African Union, and CARICOM, a number of things that would bring us closer together. One of the things I think that could be proposed there is for there to be an ambassador from the African Union in CARICOM, and that CARICOM has an ambassador and an embassy in the AU, so that we have an embassy on the African soil, and the AU has a embassy and Caribbean soil, and that would help us to really bridge the gap even more and build what I term to be the Atlantic Bridge.
The second Africa CARICOM Summit, slated for September 2025 in Ethiopia, is expected to solidify the commitment of both regions to closer collaboration and South-South cooperation.
The annual Warren C. Tyson WCT Memorial Scholarship Induction Ceremony was held on August 30, 2025, bringing together students, families, and community leaders in a celebration of academic excellence and service. The Warren C. Tyson Memorial Scholarship Induction Ceremony, hosted at the TDC Training Room, 4th Street, Basse-Terre, recognized a new cohort of scholarship recipients from high schools in the Federation, who were selected for their outstanding academic performances. Nicholas Menon, Executive Director of the TDC Group of Companies, shared success stories of some past scholarship recipients and inspired the new inductees to use the scholarship opportunity as a stepping stone to greater achievements.
The scholarship is named after our first chairman, Warren C. Tyson. He believed in building a better future through education. And today you're part of that legacy. You're part of over 273 students that passed through us, who've gone on to become doctors, lawyers, architects, farmers, entrepreneurs, coders, authors, and we have our first famous DJ now. Everybody knows DJ Terror, right? So, lastly, you all know as well, we also has our very first Prime Minister, Terence Drew. He was one of your scholarship students as well. So, when you walk into school next week, walk tall. You're not just a student, you're a WCT scholar, and that really means something. So, parents and guardians, this is your moment too. We are going to lean on you, you're going to lean on us. It's a partnership that we have here. You've guided, supported, and cheered from the sidelines, and today we recognize you and cheer you as well. Congratulations. So let me leave with a final quote. Education is a key to unlocking the world, a passport to freedom.
The audience was reminded by the guest speaker, Principal Education Officer Nevis, Londa Brown, that the scholarship not only eases financial burdens, but also symbolizes trust in the potential of the youth and a call to leadership and responsibility.
Today is a celebration of you, our students, a celebration of the TDC group of companies, and a celebration of your parents. It's a celebration of hope, the hope that your parents and your teachers have in you students and your future. It's a celebration of the potential that we see in you. It's also a celebration of the power of community and the acknowledgement by TDC and companies like them that it takes a village to educate a child. So we want to say to our students, congratulations to you. You have made it here this morning. And yes, you can give them a round of applause. You have made it here this morning because of your hard work and your dedication and your commitment to your dreams. Someone saw potential in you and decided that with the work that you're doing, you can reach unrecognizable heights if you get just a little bit of support. And that is what this scholarship is, some support for you. But it's more than just financial assistance. It's a vote of confidence in your abilities. It's a commitment to your educational journey and an investment in your future. I hope that it reminds you that you are seen, that you are valued, and that as a community, we believe in you. I hope that you use it to fertilize your growth. You use it to challenge yourself, and when the opportunity arises, that you use it to do the same for someone else, to give back, to give them a helping hand.
The recipients are the 2025 graduates of respective public primary schools from across the Federation who were enrolled at specific secondary schools following their graduations. Applause filled the room as each inductee walked up front to receive their certificates and awards, officially joining the distinguished network of Warren C. Tyson Memorial Scholars. They include Zenobia Johnson, Charlestown Secondary School, Zakier Stapleton, Gingerland Secondary School, Brianna Daniels, Bastia High School, Tatiana Creary, Keon High School, Orlando Laplace, Charles E. Mills Secondary School, Kiara J. Carey, Denzel L. Douglas Secondary School, formerly the Sadler Secondary School, Desarian Harris, Vergiles High School, Curvacia Phipps, Washington Archibald High School. Meanwhile, the TDC Financial Services Academic Excellence Award was presented to the runners-up of the Warren C. Tyson Memorial Scholarship. The recipients include Samuel Grant, Charlestown Secondary School, Kalidre Glasgow, Gingerland Secondary School, Naima Peets, Bastia High School, Anne Singh, Keon High School, Kyron Richardson, Charles E. Mills Secondary School, Javion Bradshaw, Denzel L. Douglas Secondary School, Deandra Cotton, Vergiles High School, and Lemar Tobias, Washington Archibald High School.
Amid continued discussions on the recent passage of the Special Sustainability Zone Authorization Bill, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honourable Dr. Terence Drew, addressed some of the concerns and misunderstandings surrounding the bill. The legislation establishes legally designated areas for foreign investment that meet stringent environmental infrastructure and social standards.
That gives us the opportunity to set up these zones to help to drive the economy. We can't be left behind. We see these zones in Panama. Even countries in the Caribbean are setting up these zones. Even the United States of America has zones like these. Any country you go to, they have these special zones that allow them to develop in a particular way, and that would help to drive the economy going forward. Right.
But the creation of these zones, given the size of St. Kitts and Nevis, small land base, we have to be careful what we allocate for the development of such zones.
Right. So a lot of the times when these zones are being developed, one, you have to manage the size. I agree. But secondly, some of them might be based on private sector investment that has nothing at all to do with the government. And that in itself helps to drive the economy. We have to make sure that the rules and laws and regulations around the zones, however, are in place, so that they can make sure that the country is not affected negatively, but will bring the positive benefits of economic growth and so forth. So St. Kitts is entering into that idea of these zones as a means to propel economic growth and advancement. And therefore, I think that is a positive view in terms of what will be necessary to lead to further advancement. And as I said before, rules are very important.
Regarding concerns about the federal government's influence on Nevis in setting up zones, Prime Minister Drew stated that the Nevis Island Administration NIA must agree.
I heard a lot of things. Let me just say clearly that if one of these zones, for example, were to develop in Nevis, the law is clear that the Nevis Island Administration must be consulted and agree to it. The federal government cannot tell Nevis what to do. Right. In terms of that, the Constitution is clear with respect to that. So Nevis, if anything's to be done on Nevis, the Nevis Island Administration deals with it. And I am not going to get directly.
The federal government has a say in that?
Now, if Nevis Island Administration, and you have to look at the Constitution, I think it's in Chapter 10 of the Constitution, where the Constitution speaks specifically to Nevis, and that Nevis would have the Island Administration of Nevis, and Nevis would have control over its real estate and so forth. Where the federal government comes in is to make sure that the issues of immigration and customs, which are federal matters, that those are enforced to ensure that whatever is developed does not violate those laws. However, in terms of the type of development that Nevis wishes to have,
that's for the NIA.
That's for the NIA. And I am not going to get involved directly with that. I will just say the remit of me as the Prime Minister from a federal level is to make sure immigration, customs, and all these things are respected.
The Special Sustainability Zone Authorization Bill is designed to advance the country's sustainable island state agenda, which seeks to establish a modern and resilient economy. You are listening to the Week in Review here on WINN FM 98.9. Thank you for listening and have a productive week.